For many families, school is now back or will be soon. We've had a taste of what it's like to be a teacher and have a whole lot more respect for the wonderful work that teachers do. So how do we make a smooth transition back to a more normal school routine, but make the most of our recent experiences of learning from home? Today, parenting and family psychology expert Professor Matt Sanders is here with Dr. Julie Hodges, clinical psychologist and education researcher, to talk about some practical ideas for building on our recent homeschooling experiences and developing a positive ongoing homeschool partnership.
How do teachers do it? How do they manage teaching kids? Being able to manage that is really tricky and really hard.
I think the thing that impressed me most wasn't just the time and energy that teachers put into preparing their lessons, but the effort they put into differentiating learning for my kids. It really demonstrated just how well they knew them, and even though they weren't face-to-face in the classroom, they were still taking the time to ensure the work catered to their needs.
As a teacher, it's evident that newfound respect that some parents now have for teachers just through their feedback that they're providing with all staff, and how appreciative they are with the time and energy and investment the teachers have put into providing their child with the support and the work through this unprecedented times.
I think all parents and teachers really do want the best outcomes for children, and they have a really important role, but their roles are different. So during the pandemic, we've had a situation where schools have needed to find new ways of communicating to all parents. And one of the issues that we can reflect on is, so what have we learned from this experience so far? I think there are lots of benefits for children when parents work in partnership with their teachers in schools. Research over many years has shown that students whose parents are meaningfully engaged in their child's learning, both at home and at school, achieve better academic, social and emotional outcomes for children, which is what both parents and children want. This includes things like kids just having increased motivation, doing better in their achievement and their overall success at school. Where there's good homeschool communication and relationships, children are likely to be attending school more frequently, more regularly, and there are higher rates of school completion, graduation, and uptake of tertiary studies, which is so important. Kids themselves have a greater self-belief. They have a belief in their capacity to address the issues in front of them. We call this a sense of self-efficacy. And it's also a belief in the importance of education in life. And so when you've got kids who've got higher aspirations for learning at school and beyond, this is a huge asset. So despite a shared interest in children's learning, the relationship between home and school is not always a straightforward one. And often it's not quite as positive or productive as both teachers and parents might like it to be. And in fact, at times it can be quite adversarial. The downside is that when the relationship between parents and teachers is conflicted, children's learning can suffer, but teachers are also affected. Julie, I wonder if I could bring you in at this point to just reflect on the issue of how the relationship between parents and teachers, when it's conflicted, how this can affect teachers.
Yes, Matt, there's been some really rather surprising and somewhat concerning outcomes of survey research that indicate that when there are difficult relationships with parents, that 50% of teachers said that they felt quite anxious and nervous. Around 70% said that these difficult interactions really impacted their enjoyment of teaching, and a third said that they'd even considered leaving teaching as a consequence of these difficult interactions.
This must be a great concern both to schools and to parents, I guess.
As I said, we were really surprised at the outcomes of this research, and it really underpins or underlines the importance of the partnership that we need to develop between parents and teachers.
Well, everyone wants to keep great teachers teaching for as long as they're able to, because that makes such an important difference to children's lives. I think we need to now really reflect on what can be done about this.
I had a parent who wanted to send her child to school because she had another 2 younger kids at home. I got in contact with her to reassure her that she'd been doing a great job. We talked through the online learning and discussed any of the concerns that she did have. I really feel like this communication strengthened our parent-teacher relationship.
Although we may think that there is perhaps not a lot that we can do to turn around this, there in fact is a lot that parents can do themselves to build a positive home-school partnership. Julie, can you share some of your research team's ideas in this area? What have you found?
Our research has really enforced the importance of parents and teachers forming respectful and collaborative relationships and working towards common goals. And when they do that, the result is optimal learning and well-being for children. So really, it's helpful to think of the relationship as a partnership, and every positive interaction is kind of a deposit in the partnership bank account. I'm really optimistic that the recent home-based learning will have developed a newfound respect for parents and teachers of one another, and that this will strengthen the relationship moving forward. I think that there are a lot of things that parents can do to help maintain this relationship. So having regular contact with the child's teachers so that they know you and that you have open channels of communication is really important. And this can be as simple as a wave and a smile at pickup. Schools are very busy places, so checking out when teachers are most likely to be available to listen to you, and then finding out their preferred way of contact. So it might be an initial email, but then is it phone, is it Zoom? We're all using Zoom now, or a face-to-face meeting. Checking in about what your child's learning. So COVID home-based learning will likely have created more options for connecting with schools. And while it's probably a relief for parents to turn back the teaching responsibilities to teachers, it's still really important for parents to be part of their child's learning. And I guess another really important point from my perspective is that we need to let teachers know that they're appreciated. So rather than waiting for problems to occur, letting them know that their children are enjoying what's going on at school.
So this is actually sharing some of the good news, isn't it, about children and their learning experiences, and not having communication with teachers solely driven around concerns and worries.
Yes, definitely. So developing that positive relationship.
Surveys have shown that most parents are actually very positive about communication with their child's teacher and tend to agree that their child's teacher is approachable and responsive to their concerns, which is good news. But we don't always convey this back to teachers. It's important to give teachers positive feedback and to share stories your child is bringing home about their school experience. This will help to build a positive home-school partnership. Julie, any further thoughts or reflections on this issue?
I think a positive homeschool partnership is paramount. It's really important, but it's naive to think that there might not be some issues, some concerns along the way. So the positive relationship stands us in good stead to communicate appropriately when these concerns arise. If a problem does occur, it's important to act quickly and to set a time to meet with the teacher. It's important to think about calm ways of sharing concerns without any judgment or blame, and working as a team to sort things out. So the email that we dash off at 12 o'clock at night that's full of emotional language is best saved and revisited in the morning and changed before we send it off. We want to have a calm and rational response to concerns that we might have.
Some very important points there, and I'd just add that it's important for parents, I think, to just make no assumptions about what either the school knows or has done to address an issue that the parent may be concerned about, because there could have been a lot happening at school to address the issue that the parent actually doesn't know about, and so make no assumptions.
It's been really hard balancing full-time work, home-based learning. But it's also been great to understand what my daughter is learning and being able to support her. For example, understanding some of the math strategies they are teaching her so that I can use the language she understands. It would be really great if after this her teacher could continue to share these with us so that I can use this language when I support her with her homework.
Okay, let's move on to thinking a little bit more about other things that parents can do to support their child's learning at home.
There are quite a few things that parents can do, I think. You know, one of the most important is to talk to your child every day about what they're learning at school and what's happened in the classroom. Encourage their aspirations and encourage them to dream big. We want them to really set a high bar for themselves. Try to show children how their learning relates to life outside the classroom. So a little example of that might be if they're learning about fractions, how do we divide the pizza up between the family members? Or if we're sharing an iPad, how do we divide the time between siblings so that it's fair and equitable? It's important to encourage lifelong learning by having rich conversations about what the child's learning at home and how it might apply to the outside world. Also important to show that you care about your child's life at school by accepting invitations to connect with the school and your child's learning by attending events and helping out in the classroom. Now, it's quite likely that as children return to the classroom, there'll be more flexible ways of doing that because we're all really time poor. And I think the COVID home-based learning has probably allowed us many more opportunities to be involved, even if we can't actually physically attend events.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's quite clear to me that the more parents are involved in this kind of interaction with school, the more they get out of it, because the engagement is really good for parents. It can be wonderful to be part of a school community and to be feeling as a parent you're really contributing to children's learning. And it's not just sort of academic learning, but it's also assisting with things like coaching and various events that are being organised and fundraisers that schools rely on.
Yes, definitely, Matt. And it really establishes a very strong home-school partnership. The saying, it takes a village to raise a child, is actually very true. It's really, really important.
Yeah, isn't that spot on? So let's not lose the positive contact that we've been forced to create with schools during these unusual times caused by the COVID pandemic. And we can continue to build on this new relationship. Teachers will appreciate positive contact with parents and support for children's learning now that we've had more involvement in their work. And I think many teachers will realise that parents actually know a little bit more about what's going on with learning, having been in this situation. Parents get a lot out of being involved in the school community, but the biggest winners of all are our children. There are so many benefits when parents and schools work together.
To recap on these ideas for working in partnership with your child's school, here are some key things to remember. Tip number 1, when parents are engaged in their child's learning, there are better academic, social and emotional outcomes. Tip number 2, positive homeschool communication can build a real partnership, and this benefits children. Tip number 3, it really helps when parents continue to support their child's learning and love of learning at home. And tip number 4, parents can also get a lot out of being involved in school life and the school community. Thanks for listening to Parenting in a Pandemic. Make sure you like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to leave a review, it'll help others to find this series. You can find free COVID-19 Parenting in a Pandemic resources in the episode show notes to help you on this journey.